Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make a classic teriyaki chicken. We start out with a whole bunch of chicken thighs, and you need enough to really fill your pan here. We need to get the skins off. I like to trim the excess fat off as well. This is probably the most time-consuming part of the preparation. And if the chicken's frozen like this one is, not completely frozen, but ice crystals and such, you'll end up with some very cold hands. This recipe was brought back from Japan by my parents, my mother I should say. She was the cook, the chef. My father was stationed there in Japan during Vietnam, and the American dollar was high against the yen at the time, so they were able to afford someone to come and help cook and clean. And my parents had 2 children while they were there, so I'm sure Mom could use the extra help. But the woman, Keiko, don't know her last name, she gave my mom this recipe. And as a kid, we would go to different restaurants, and I can remember ordering the teriyaki chicken off the menu and unfailingly being disappointed, because you'll be hard pressed to find a teriyaki recipe as good as this, and in my opinion as authentic as this. I have, I think maybe on 2 occasions, found teriyaki that use the exact same recipe, more or less. The first time was at a wedding reception. I was blown away, I guess, fully expecting the teriyaki to be nothing like this. The other time was at a restaurant in Chicago, where if you've been there, you know there's all kinds of restaurants that serve good food in Chicago. And I can't remember the name of it. At any rate, I will speed the video along a little here so that you don't have to spend as much time as I do with this prep. Here we have our chicken. As you can see, I could use one more piece, and I wish I had one more. I do have some chicken breasts in the freezer, but I found that mixing the thighs with the bone in and the breast, which is boneless, isn't, it's harder to manage. The breast cooks relatively quickly, whereas these get a slow cook going. While you're baking it in the oven, you will be basting it quite frequently. It builds up a really rich, almost mahogany colored coating on it that is part of the aesthetic appeal and also the flavor. And you don't have the same amount of time with the breast to do that. And in general, I find the breast to be less than satisfactory with this recipe. It can be done though. You'll have to change your cook time to allow for the quicker cooking breast. The reason I like to fill this up all the way is because you only have so much sauce, and you can make extra, but I find that it never quite works out the same exactly. that way. You know, the object here is not to boil the chicken in a lot of sauce. The object is to just kind of fill the cracks with it and do a lot of basting right on top. I'm going to wash my hands to get the chicken off, and then we'll move on to the sauce, which is fairly simple. Okay. Four ingredients. Actually, I'm omitting two, so we'll talk about those too. Sugar, soy sauce, ginger, and garlic. And garlic can be crushed, and the ginger grated. The other two ingredients that I won't be using today are one, Aji No Moto, which is Japanese for MSG, monosodium glutamate, which most Americans will leave out in any case. You need about a tablespoon of garlic and at least a teaspoon of ginger. And the recipe that Keiko sent back has those proportions exactly. A tablespoon of crushed garlic and a teaspoon of grated ginger. However, the ginger is so good that I put a tablespoon of that in as well. And in fact, I eyeball it. So I'm not using measuring utensils here at all. The other ingredient I'll be leaving out, primarily because I don't have any, is Saki, is rice wine, is what it's called for in the recipe. Growing up in a small town in Michigan, an agricultural community, back in the 70s and 80s, we just didn't have access to rice wine. So Mom always used a dry vermouth, which works just as well. And in fact, she took a lot of cooking lessons while she was over there. They were given by some Benedictine nuns, and they used a lot of dry vermouth in their recipes. Okay, a couple medium-sized cloves of garlic, or one large one we'll usually do. That one's small. Alright, I'm actually going to set those aside, and one of the hardest parts is to get all the sugar dissolved into the soy sauce. Oh, and as far as the white wine goes, it's 2 tablespoons, so it's not a lot in the overall scheme of things. I don't keep a lot of alcohol on hand, so I just don't have any. Okay, half a cup of soy sauce. Which looks like I better go to the store and get more soy sauce. And a 1/4 cup of sugar. And like I said, this can take a while to get that sugar to dissolve into the soy sauce. I'm using a low sodium soy sauce. That's just because of what I have on hand. I actually prefer the regular soy sauce, but some people do find it pretty salty, so I'll do it like this, and if it's not salty enough for you, you can salt it yourself. Okay. I'm not going to lose any sleep if I don't get all the sugar dissolved. It's all going into the recipe anyways, but you don't want to pour it out and find a big slurry of sugar at the bottom of your cup that doesn't end in the dish. Some nice fresh garlic. Try and get it all. Get that last bugger in there. And I like to clean the press out as much as I can right away because that garlic turns right into glue, practically. Although it dissolves quickly in warm water. Okay, and the ginger, that's more than a tablespoon, but that's fine. If you like ginger. I've never put too much in. Not in my opinion, anyways. You can start to smell it. Sweet, gingery, garlicky, and soy sauce. Good enough. Pour it over your chicken thighs. Sugar in the bottom, not too bad. Got it to suspend. See, an empty spot next to this chicken. I'm gonna open up the floodgates, as it were. Push the chicken around a little bit on the edges to let the sauce get down around it and lift it up a little bit. So get a good coating on there. Don't have to overdo it or worry about it too much. Okay, that looks good. Looks like I've got enough sauce. Okay, and I guess I hadn't mentioned at this point, but it's good to do this 24 hours before you want to enjoy this dish. It needs to marinate. I'll be eating it tonight. It's now 8 o'clock in the morning, and I won't be eating it till about 6. That's about the minimum time that I would want to marinate it. Overnight's best. One time I marinated it for 2.5 days, and it had the best flavor I've ever had, but it also tenderized the chicken so much that the texture was ruined and it really wasn't a good dish. I'm just going to pop this into the refrigerator. And other than a little bit of cleanup, you can see the prep didn't take all that long. And I'll be back tonight to show you how to bake it.